Coach.
Obviously, disappointed for our organization, for us, for our fan base, for all of us, but the work has started today. 2025 starts today for us, and the process has already begun. Obviously, the things that we have to do, myself, Terry, Greg Beatles, all of us involved, getting together and figuring out how to be where we want to be and find a way to get there. And with that, I open up questions.
Yeah, Coach, what will be some of the keys as you move forward to try to, move up in the National Football Conference and be a legitimate playoff contender and maybe even make the playoffs in the future?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Led. We got to go out and find ways to get better. And we got to continue that growth mindset that we started this year that we were not able to finish. We came up short, and it's disappointing for all of us, how it happened. And we got to find ways to mitigate that low that we had in the middle of the season so we don't have that, so we can continue to get better throughout the season. We can maintain excellent play across the board for all our guys in order for us to go out there and finish and find ways to get into this tournament. There's nothing anybody else wants to do but do that, so let's go find a way to do that.
What went wrong? I know it's early. Y'all haven't had time to do the extensive film review, but what were some of the things that went wrong? You were at the top and ended, a little bit below that.
We didn't do a good enough job. It starts with me. We got to find ways to win games. We got to find ways to be more consistent. We got to find ways to win those very winnable games that we had on our schedule, that we had a chance to win. We got to find ways to get better on all sides of the ball. We got to find ways to get better across the board. We got to find ways to get better with us, and that's what we'll do. And we'll have a dedicated staff. We'll have a dedicated people that's going to do that for us, and it starts with me, and we'll go out there and do those things.
When you look back at yesterday's game, were you able to pinpoint why the defense performed the way it did?
We had an awful game. We gave us some explosive. We had a game like that just recently in Minnesota where there was some confusion calls in the back end and allowed wide open players, and we can't do that. And those are things that can't happen, and it doesn't matter who goes out there. It doesn't matter what happens. The understanding has to remain the same. We have to breed that kind of confidence about us. And, I don't want to discredit Carolina and what they were able to do. Bryce made some plays, made some people miss, bought some extra time, made plays down the field. But we are definitely better and more capable of playing at a higher level than we did yesterday.
Raheem, on Lake, are you expecting him returning, and how do you just kind of evaluate his overall year?
We got to evaluate all of our coaches. We got to evaluate all of our players. We got to evaluate everything that we do from a whole program standpoint, and we will do those things. That's what starts today, Daniel. That's when we'll get out there and get those things going. We'll have a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of everything to evaluate everything. We'll have a chance to get back together and really talk about these things, and that's the process that happens now. There'll never be anything that's the same in the National Football League, whether it's players, whether it's coaches, whatever the case may be, since I've been here. So since I've been lucky enough to be in the league, that's just how it is. We'll do those things now.
Coach, obviously this isn't the way that you envisioned it ending for the season, but what are some of the pros? What are some of the positives that you take out of this season that you start building on from the ground up going into next year?
It definitely starts with what we talked about when I first got here, talking about getting the quarterback in that room and what we wanted to do for the long term. And Michael Penix in these last 3 games has definitely shown us that, and that's definitely our positive. Pairing him up with Drake London, pairing him up with Bijan Robinson, and watching that combo get a chance to start fresh and do some things will really be positive. Getting Mooney back are some of the things that's going to be positive. Obviously, watching those guys go and grow is some things that you want to really, really lean on. Watching a young guy like A.J. Terrell get a contract this year and really assert himself into a leadership spot. Jesse Bates having the ability to play at a very high level. And guys like that and be able to do things like that is something that really fires you up. There are guys all around that you got great character in, like a Grady and some of those guys that we got people that can do those things. And, now we got to go out there and do it, right? And you got to start the thing over, and you got to build up those positives, and you got to find ways to get better so you can compete in the things that we want to compete in and be able to do those things at a high level.
Do you envision changes, from a bird's eye view? I know it's early, but do you envision things kind of changing?
I haven't been around the league for a while, and very rarely do things get a chance to stay the same. And there's always going to be changes from all standpoints, and there's always going to be changes that you can do, especially when you start the evaluation process. I think the thing about being brutally honest with yourself, I think, is about being brutally honest with each other and really having the ability to go out there and really participate in order to do the best thing for our fan base and our fans.
How do you evaluate the year you had on special teams? Obviously, a couple kickers coming in, the return game. How do you get better at that in that phase of the game?
You know, obviously, we missed entirely too many kicks this year. The brutal, honest truth, and that can't happen. So we got to find ways to make those kicks. That certainly plays into a part of not winning the amount of games you want to win. We got to find ways to create that competition across the board for all of us. We got to get Koo healthy, get him back. We got to do some of the things there. Obviously, we're going to go into where we got to go to see who our returner is, to be able to see if we can activate some of those things more. But from an overall standpoint of us playing special teams, we made a lot of plays. We did. We scored touchdowns on special teams. We blocked kicks. We've done a lot of really good things. But moving forward, we want to find ways to get better. And it starts right now with a negative on how we can get better to make sure we can ensure that we have the ability to make the kicks when we need them.
You mentioned change. How do you balance patience with saying, hey, this is a new unit, new coaches and all that, versus wanting to make changes and wanting to see the success rate?
That is always the part you got to deal with, right? That's always the part you got to digest. That's always the part you got to go. That's why you don't want to make the emotional decisions after a game, whether it's yesterday, at the game right away. You want to be able to sit down, cooler, calmer head, obviously, than I was yesterday. Able to sit down, be able to look at those things over the next couple of days and the course of the next week or whatever the case may be, and then make those decisions.
Where do you proceed with Kirk? You've obviously been firm in your commitment to Michael.
You know, obviously, sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Obviously, when you're talking about Kurt, you know, we were talking about where we ended it last, and he did exactly what he told me he would do. He would be the best backward quarterback in the National Football League, and that's where he's at. So, obviously, those things will come up in these same discussions. Those things will all mask themselves. You know, Kurt left today, gave me a hug, and said he'll talk to me soon, and we'll make some of those decisions, obviously, with him, obviously because of his contract status and all the things that he's talking about, right? So, like, you just never know, and I think that's the part of the process that we'll go through right now with him.
I'm sure y'all have contingency plans about that contract and about Kirk, but how much does it kind of look, when you're looking at the plans that you want to do and the steps that you want to take forward, how much does that decision on what is happening with Kirk dictate what you do moving forward in this offseason?
All things you really just focus on with Terry. You know, that's like the Terry neighborhood. We'll get together and kind of have those discussions. We'll be able to put those things in alignment, how we got to have it. It's the cost of doing business, how you go about your process, and you know, all the things that I'll definitely have high discussions with Terry about.
When you look at offensively and what this team was able to do, not just yesterday, but the last 3 weeks, and you talk about Michael being the light at the end of the tunnel, does that almost shift priority this offseason to firming up the defensive side of the ball?
You could say that, Tori, but, you know, realistically, like, it's whatever you think you need to do to win. You know, it's like that's always going to take precedence. And when we get a chance to do all the evaluations and get a chance to look at our team, and you get a chance to look at it on paper and get a chance to watch those guys go out there and participate in the off seasons and do some of those things, that will always be a real focus on what you need to do in order to win football games.
You're obviously disappointed right now, but looking at yesterday and the offense, career highs, you know, for Bijan and Drake and obviously, you know, Penix. Going into next year with this offense and, you know, with Zach Robinson, is there a little bit of excitement, you know, and how do you feel like Zach Robinson did in his first year as a play caller?
You're spot on, Mark. Like this is 100% an awful day. Hate it, right? And it's disappointing. And the results and what we got and for our fans and for us is disappointing, you know. But when you look at those guys on the offense side of the ball, it does create a certain urgency and a certain excitement for you personally. And this is a disappointing day because you want those guys to be able to showcase that at a high level. And we'll get there, you know, and it's our job to get there, and we have to get there. But it's certainly a disappointing day when you know you don't get a chance to do that.
How much did those 3 starts for Michael, how much will that help propel him into the offseason and growth? Because now, you know, he didn't sit on the bench all year. He's going to go into next year with 3 under his belt. How much do you think that will help him moving forward?
I think anytime you get a chance to play at a high level like he was able to do in the last 3 weeks, and, you know, that Washington playoff-like environment, yesterday playoff-like environment, and having the ability to go to make some of the plays that he made and some of those clutch, you know, fourth quarter, down by 7, leading us to a drive to go up there and tie it or try to take a lead, whatever the case may be, starting off a game, going through the whole process, taking a game plan, going out and practice and executing, making some of the throws that he was able to make yesterday. All of those things will propel him into 2025, which starts today for us. But that's certainly a part of the stuff that's going to help him get better. He had just got going. He was starting to get confidence. He was playing with a lot of confidence. He got a chance to go out there and actually be able to do some of the work that he's been talking about in practice from behind with the clipboard. He got a chance to go out there for the last 3 weeks and execute some things, and we're very pleased on what he was able to do. Would have loved to be able to get him a couple wins in there.
To follow up on that, when you are kind of planning for what this offseason could look like with Mike, and he goes into this offseason knowing he's the guy, what goals do you have in mind for him? I know last night you talked about layering throws and wanting to see him improve in that, but if you could kind of give a snapshot of what your goals for Mike in the offseason are, what would they be?
Growth mindset, time on task with his guys, and making sure he has the ability to go out there and find ways to make himself better every single day while he's getting better with his guys and having the ability to forge his identity and what we're going to look like on offense and how we're going to move forward. This young man is in a growing state, and he loves it. He loves football. He's as poised as it gets. He's fired up as it gets. He sees the game well, and he gives us all a little bit of excitement when you get a chance to coach him.
You were brought here, obviously, the leadership of the franchise thought this was a playoff team, and you were hired with that expectation. As you look at the job that you did, are there already things that you know that you want to do better, have to do better as you go into this offseason?
Yeah, you certainly always got to self-evaluate and what you want to do better and how you want to do those things better. And you certainly want to be able to do things better for yourself. You want to be doing things better for your organization, for everybody. So this disappointment comes not just blaming and pushing on anybody else. You somewhat internalize it all and put it on yourself, and then be able to breed it out across the organization so we can go out and make those things better. So you definitely got to always self-evaluate yourself as well, and that's a part of our evaluation as well.
I mean, do you already know, having been through a season, I need to do this better, or we need this for person on staff, or whatever else it might be? You
already know some things, and you already talk about things with yourself, but there's always things that you can do to get better even further, right? You don't assume. You go out there and you go through the process, and you take your time, go through your process, and you go about it and do what you need to do.
How much did the few starts that Mike got and just everything he was able to handle throughout the season reaffirm all of the beliefs that you had in him when you drafted him?
That's a tough one, because, when you went out there and you evaluate him and you fell in love with the young man, and the reason you did draft him was because of what we got when we brought him in. And it was a poised young man that can learn, that can throw, that was really dialed and locked in. And then you got a chance to go watch him actually do it. For you guys, it was the first time you guys saw, but we had kind of been seeing it, behind the scenes, so to speak. For it to come out, I think is pretty good. For him, it definitely affirms some of the things for our fan base. It definitely affirms some of the things for the people in this room. But for the coaching staff and a lot of people that was in the building, we saw a lot of promise in a young man from just practice.
You mentioned fan base. What would your message be to them after this year?
We got to find ways to encourage these guys to get them right. And the only way you do that is to go out and do it. And we got to, and not much different than what Matt Ryan talked to us about. You got to go prove it. And really it's about us just going to do it, not really talking about it.
Given what you've said about Mike and how we've seen him perform these last 3 weeks, and considering the team was basically one game short of the playoffs, is there any regret of not putting him in there sooner?
It's never like a regret thing. You got to make the decisions. You got to do them when you think they're the right way. And when the decision was made is when I felt like the team played really well outside of our quarterback position, and that's when I made the change. And when you make that change, it's hard to say you regret it because you had a lot of confidence in the guy that was out there before, and we just were able to get it done, unable to get it done. And you got to make those decisions, and we're put in this vision to make decisions. I'm in the decision-making process, and I made a decision when I did, give us the best chance I thought to win. And so that was the decision at the time. So it's hard to say regret, but the kid's in a good spot.
Rod, do you watch the games this weekend? Do you want your players to watch the games this weekend? What do you want to do there?
Definitely do. I actually driving home last night from the game is exactly what you tell them. And you get a chance to talk to a couple of the special players on this team that you guys know. I won't even call all their names, but you call them and you say, hey, get away a little bit, get a chance to watch these playoff games and let it sting. You want that to sting. You want that to simmer. You want that feeling of that want to hit them just like your coaches, you want all that stuff to happen because the only way you get it is you absolutely want it and you go for it. And now we just got to do that.
What have the conversations been like with ownership, Arthur Blank, about the direction that you all headed coming off this season?
It's kind of unique when you talk about Arthur because I get a chance to talk to him so much, right? We get a chance to conversate every single week. We get a chance to talk about what it takes to win a game. We get a chance to talk about what went right or went wrong every single game. And that is kind of our exercise that we always go with him. And like realistically for him is he wants to win. And we don't necessarily have to talk about it. It's the message for us right now is to go out and get it done. And 2025 for us starts now, and it's our job to go out there and find ways to win.
Regarding what I asked you before about things you can do better, is game management, clock management something that you feel like you need to improve on?
Yeah, we've had like probably one of the better years when it comes to going forward on fourth down. Obviously you had one of those deals, the snafu, whatever you want to call it, with the timeout, and that was the decision you made. That's a part of making decisive decisions and really doing it at the time. But, when you really go back and look at it, it's been one of the top notches in the National Football League. And that's always something you want to go review. Like you'll review those things from a year basis every single year of football. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you make decisions. That's how you go about your business. So like when you do that, that's going to be a week to week. That's going to be a yearly thing. That's going to be done from a history thing of situational football and how you get that better and what's the best ways moving forward. So yes, you always look at those things.
As you all get to roster improvement, how much will you got 23 free agents, you got possibly 10 guys coming back from IR. Is that kind of the first place you all look internally and trying to improve the roster?
Definitely. You start with your team first. That's what we're going to this week, in the season evaluations. And you get a chance to talk about all your guys coming back, whether they're injured or whether they're on the team and healthy. You get a chance to evaluate those guys and kind of have a 360 all around about our players. And then obviously that opens up into UFAs next, and then obviously to our college draft and so on and so on. And, obviously the undrafted free agents after that, in order ways to acquire talent and acquire players. And those things are being done. And that's all collaborated with obviously Terry and his team and Ryan Pace and Kyle and all the guys that are involved with that, and Tumbo and everybody that's able to give us information. Now is the time for those guys to really catch the coaches up to all the things that we got to do that they've been doing, the work they've been doing behind the scenes. They'll be able to catch us up with some of those guys and get some evaluation from all of our guys. And then we'll get a chance to collaborate at different moments of the segments of the year based on the calendar, when we can have a chance to get together and really talk about those guys and harness the information to find out what culture fits and what is a Falcon and how they can be involved and put into our situation. And those are all the things that's going to happen over the next couple of months. And it started, like I said, it started today.
And when you look at the fact that last year you got here late January, full coaching staff in probably mid-February, and you have to kind of expedite that process of marrying philosophies with you and Terry and y'all's staff. How does the role of the coaching staff change now that you do have that time from January to February to be actively involved in the direction of roster building?
I think it's nothing better than getting to know your general manager, their team, as well as we were able to do last year. Being able to sit in those rooms and have those conversations and be able to talk about the likes, the what's we're looking for, all the things that we go through has been awesome. And now this year we'll get more time to do that. We'll get more time to do that with his staff. We'll get more time to do that with Terry. We'll get more time to do that with our coaching staff, our leadership crew. This is the time where you build. This is the time when you get together. This is the time where you identify things and be able to help us go out there and be the best version of ourselves. So like this time is very important for us.
Coach, to follow up on that, that gives you, a year ago at this time, you were just getting here. How you've been with the guys, the roster. Does that give you a little better communication with Terry, having known the roster better?
Yeah, and obviously, this year was a big time learning curve for Terry and I. And I thought it couldn't have went better with the communication, with the clarity, with his ability to communicate to me, his tireless work ethics to bring people in, his staff, all the guys, working out people, the amount of people we played on the roster this year. We talked about very early being a 69-man roster, whatever the case may be. And we talked about playing people on the practice squad. And you've seen guys get flexed and moved up and moved down and all kinds of stuff throughout the course of the year to try to win games. But, it only gets better moving forward with Terry Fontenot and those guys and Cal Smith and what they're able to do because of the tireless effort that they put into it. Ryan Pace. I can name all those guys. They just done such a great job of communicating with the coaching staff, our building, our players. It's all one, and it's coming together just like you want it to.
I know you weren't here at this exact moment like last year, so you can't really compare it exactly, but what's your perspective on the progress you guys made as a franchise?
You know, it's a reality check for all of us, right? Let's not kid ourselves. We're one more game removed. Like let's just call it what it is. You know, so like, you know, I'm not going to sit here and give you this furry, fluffy tale how much better it is. Like, look, man, we got to go win football games, and that's our job, and that's what we want to go do. So, like, for us, we want to go.
Coach, again, you know, focusing on the things that you take into next season, the positives and what you have to build on. You got some good players here, and as you just mentioned, you got some really special players here. One in particular, Penix mentioned that he told Bijan how insane he was and how difficult it is sometimes for him to carry out his play fakes as opposed to wanting to peek to see what he does. What's your you've been in the league for a while, you've seen a lot of players. What's your assessment of, you know, Bijan, and were you expecting him to be what he turned out to be when you took over this team?
Bijan is special. Probably not the greatest day to talk about how special, but like I told you guys numerous amounts of time, I mean, the human, the football player, the character, soon-to-be leader, taking on an even higher role, wanting it, asking for it, the workload that he was able to carry for us this year, all of those things, from an offense, defense, special teams, whatever it is, you know, whatever you ask him to do, he's going to be able to go out there and do, and he's going to be able to go out there and help you do. He's a special human. And for me to say that I expected that, I don't know. Like he's as special as you get.
You know from your involvement with this organization how long there's been discussions about improving the pass rush. Would you have expected the late season surge in sacks to have a bigger impact on the overall defensive production? And was there enough improvement shown that doesn't have to be an all-season priority any longer?
You never say it's not going to be an off-season priority. You know, like just for the philosophy of the organization, it starts up front. So, I mean, you could be number one in sacks or last. That's still going to be a priority, right? If you can get after the quarterback, you can play really good defense, and that's always going to be a priority for us. And how we go about acquiring that thing and how we want to do it is always going to be something that we're going to sit down and always explore and be able to talk about and find ways to be creative to do those things. But you know, the better you can make those moments, the better you can make those things, the better you can be.
The way you're talking about Terry makes me assume this, but you know what they say about assuming. Do you know for certain that Terry will be going with the team going forward?
I would like to hope so. You know, and like, you know, for me and Terry, like, this thing's just getting started, and like I love working with him. I love being with him, and you know, obviously I don't do contracts, you know, but like Terry and I have a great working relationship in what we're doing. We're moving forward together right now in this process. We'll be together in this process. We'll be together over the next couple of weeks talking to our players, really setting expectations for where we want to be and some of those different things as we get a chance to connect with our whole team. You know, everything that we're going to do together, and we'll be right next to each other.
You mentioned the learning curve between you two. Where did that manifest, in your opinion? Was it communication? Was it on the field?
Started really early. You know, started really early through the process, even when I was still out in L.A. And we were able to communicate every single day on Zoom. Started there. It was able to get back when we got to here, when I was living back there in those dorms. And he basically would stay here with me, and we would be able to watch tape together and go over different things. And it just kept going and growing throughout the season as we were able to communicate and talk about the dialogue of our players. We were able to talk about the what it takes to win each game and how we wanted to present those things, and how much support that he has been able to show me throughout the course of the year. And now I just can't wait for next season to show it.
You were here year one of Quinn when I want to say you guys started 5-0 and ended 8-8, right? It's not eye to eye, but this kind of feels a little similar to that. Do you feel like you guys have what you need to make that year one, year two leap?
Again, Daniel, you got to go prove it. And don't matter what I think right now. You know, when the season starts next year, I got to make sure we're ready to go prove it.
Remember what happened that offseason that kind of allowed that leap?
I could tell you what happened. You know, I moved to offense. We went out and got Mohamed Sanu in free agency. We went and got Alex Mack in free agency, play center for us. Matt Ryan was back. We added Taylor Gabriel at receiver. We were able to go out there. Our two young dynamic backs played really well. We were opportunistic on defense, getting the ball back. We had a pretty good year.
We've talked a lot about the offense's potential moving forward, but where do you see the defense? There are more players whose future in Atlanta is questionable as opposed to the offense.
I think it kind of starts with the core guys. You know, and we talk about the core guys, talking about A.J. Terrell. And the year he had this year was outstanding, and he played really well. You're talking about Jesse Bates. We're talking about the things that he's done and been able to do since he's been here as a Falcon, and really the same character traits that you talk about when you talk about our guys and what they do and how they do it. The development and the growth of Caden Ellis over the course of this year, in the last couple of years, and who he's become and all the things that he affects, whether it's pass rush or run fits and everything on our defense. And then really that youth group that's got to come be a part of that fold when you're talking about some of the guys we're getting back, the Trices, you know, Rook in his second year, Dorless and some of those things and pieces like that's going to come together on that side of the ball. And then you always got your free agents and people like that you got to go out there and look at and see what's going to happen. But, you know, obviously that part of it all starts right now. You know, obviously offense had a really good day yesterday. It's easy to talk about the big three from yesterday. And then Mooney obviously didn't play with the shoulder, but you always got to think about that. 2 receivers, almost 1,000 yards, 2 backs, one with 15, one with almost 7. Best years from Ray McLeod and things of that nature. But you got a lot of similar traits over in the defense, and they showed it in small segments and windows. We just got to make it more consistent throughout the stretch.
Why was there that confusion in the back end that you referenced yesterday?
You know, you got to play visual defense at times in zone, and when those things happen and your vision is off, you can mess those things up. When you get thrown out, when you're not the starter, some of those things can happen in that things, but those are all things that you got to clean up. Those are all things you got to have better. Every single week, something you got to work on.
Raheem, most games are tight in this league. You guys played in 12 one-score games.
Yes.
You were 6-6 in 12 one-score games. I'm assuming it's part of the evaluation process, but do you break those games down and look at maybe why one didn't go one way and one went the other?
100%. You know, it all goes back in those tight games, in those moments, right? What do those winning moments come up? And what are they going to be? A lot of times they end up being situational things. You know, I can think about the winning moments that went our way, and I can also think about the ones that didn't. And those are the big-time moments, right? You know, the Tampa game, the slider with a timeout, kicking a field goal for a walk-off. You know, in the New Orleans game, into the Philly game, driving down there for a 2-minute score, getting it done. The situational drives. And then you can think about the ones that didn't go your way, the last 2 weeks, so to speak. So it's just like those are the moments you got to go look at. You got to go find those winning moments. You got to bring those out more and more.
Can you talk specifically about the confidence with 8 seconds left at the end of the first half to give Penix one more shot instead of kicking the field goal there to get the touchdown?
That's where he's different. You know, like the trust that this staff has in this young player to be able to execute some of those things is probably a little higher just because of who the guy is. The poise, his attention to detail, to be able to explain it to him very calmly from the headsets, from the field, to watch him know that he's got to get this ball up and down in 5 seconds so we can kick this field goal if he doesn't get the completion. And for him to have the 2 shots to Drake at the end of the half was situational ball at its finest.
Anything else? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.